Over the last few days, the governments of Benin and Niger have been clashing over a border dispute, with both sides refusing to back down. The clash has created tension between both countries, and it seemed like there was no end in sight until now. However, this tension between Niger and Benin did not just start a few days ago. No, it has been simmering under the surface since the July coup that happened in Niger. If you recall, after the coup that overthrew the former president of Niger, Mohammed Bazoom, and installed General Tiani as the new president of Niger, the international community, foreign countries, and the regional bloc were thrown into a frenzy. They condemned the coup and demanded that Bazoum be reinstated. With the backing of Western countries such as France and the United States, the regional bloc ECOWAS, under the leadership of the Nigerian president Bola Tinubu, declared that there would be a military intervention if the military government of Niger refused to hand power back to Bazoum. While not every ECOWAS member country supported this move by the ECOWAS chairman, some of them, including Benin and Senegal, supported the decision of the bloc. At the time, the foreign minister of Benin, Olusegun Ajadi Bakari, told reporters that his country was demanding the immediate release and reinstatement of President Bazoum. He also said that the government of Benin has pledged their full support to whatever actions the regional bloc intends to carry out. We fully subscribe to the diplomatic actions that are underway and that remain the preferred solution for the time being, he said. But if tomorrow, for whatever reason, whatever action ECOWAS were to take, Benin would in fact be fully involved as a member of ECOWAS, he added. The president of Benin, Patrice Talon, also came out loudly to demand Bazoum's reinstatement and even advocated for a military intervention by ECOWAS troops against the coupists in Niger. In response to Benin's action, Niger, which shares a border with Benin, went ahead to terminate the military agreement it had with Benin, accusing it of authorizing the deployment of soldiers on its territory for a possible ECOWAS military attack against Niger. Although the regional bloc ended up not intervening militarily, the damage had already been done. Recall also that ECOWAS slapped stringent sanctions on Niger, which led it to close its borders. However, in February 2024, the regional bloc lifted the stringent sanctions it imposed on Niger, including border closures after Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali decided to withdraw from the bloc. Despite the removal of the sanctions, Niger refused to fully reopen its border with Benin. This meant that trade between both countries practically came to a standstill, resulting in financial losses, especially on the Beninese side. The reason for this is because, before the coup, almost all of Niger's imports, including food, cars, and consumer goods, traveled through Benin's port of Cotonou. There were alternative routes such as through Togo's port of Lome and then through Burkina Faso. However, these routes were complicated and unsafe due to the Islamist insurgency. So, Benin's port of Cotonou was the best option. However, given the closure of Niger's border with Benin, Niger shifted its imports through Burkina Faso and expanded its cooperation with the country. This is not surprising given that Burkina Faso was one of the countries that supported Niger when it was faced with threats from the regional bloc, and this support has grown and evolved into a political and economic alliance. The government of Benin has since called for the opening of the border so that trade which has halted can resume. However, Niger refused. According to the Prime Minister of Niger, Ali Mohamed Lamine Zaina, Niger cannot fully reopen its border with Benin for security reasons. He said that, in Benin's territory, there are bases wherein some terrorists are trained to come and destabilize our country. So, it is for simple security reasons that we decided to maintain the border closure. He further added that, we'll reopen the border when we are certain that our territory is secured. Amidst this tense situation, the government of Niger issued a decree on May 11th, which banned vehicles from Benin from operating on the corridor between Lome Port in Togo and various locations in Niger. According to the decree, transportation of goods along this corridor, as per a bilateral transport agreement between Niger and Togo, is exclusively reserved for vehicles registered in either Togo or Niger. The document specifies that only trucks registered in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Ghana may participate in freight transport in case of high demand, excluding those from Benin, despite the corridor's connection with the country. In response to Niger's refusal to open the border and its recent ban on Beninese truck, the government of Benin responded by blocking China's first shipment of crude oil from Niger. Recall that Niger is set to become the latest oil-producing country in Africa, with the help of investment from China, which built the 2,000 kilometers pipeline passing through Benin. The construction of the pipeline has been completed, and according to the schedule, shipping was to begin in May. However, crude oil from Niger on its way to China were prevented by the authorities in Benin from docking at the port. According to the president of Benin, Niger could not view his country as an enemy and still expects the country's oil to cross Benin territory. If you want to load your oil in our waters, you can't view Benin as an enemy and at the same time expect your oil to cross our territory. We're open to working with Niger. They're the ones that refuse to allow trucks to cross, he said. The oil bound for China was part of a $400 million commodity-backed loan from China National Petroleum Corp, which Niger's military junta agreed to at a 7% interest rate and repayment in oil for a period of 12 months. Essentially, the authorities in Benin used Niger's oil exports as a bargaining chip to pressure the government in Niger to reopen the borders. Benin's blockade of Niger's oil jeopardized Niger's plan to start crude exports under a $400 million deal with state-owned oil major China National Petroleum Corp. And this is important because Niger has said it would use funds from the export deal to fund bond payments missed while under regionally imposed sanctions. Niger's Prime Minister Tiani responded to Benin's decision at a press conference, saying that Benin's blockade of Niger's oil exports, imposed in response to a border closure, violated trade agreements between the two countries and with Niger's Chinese partners. According to Tiani, the blockade was in violation of about a dozen accords signed by Benin, Niger, and the Chinese side relating to a recently launched Petro-China-backed pipeline linking Niger's Agadem oil field to the Benin port of Cotonou. Tiani further added that one of the oil export accords stipulated that Benin could not unilaterally modify or limit the agreements in any way possible without the consent of the other parties. This means that the country agreed not to take any decision that would stop the flow of Niger's crude oil to the international market. This is serious. This is a violation of an agreement, he said. A Beninese political analyst, David Morgan, also confirmed this. According to David, Benin could justify invoking the principle of state sovereignty and the principle of reciprocity, meaning that the Nigerian side had also closed the borders with its neighbor, and thus must expect a similar countermeasure. However, he said that Benin's decision to block Niger's crude oil exports might potentially contravene international law. Under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, an international agreement providing a legal framework for all marine and maritime activities, landlocked states like Niger are legally guaranteed access to the sea. However, in a surprising twist, the government of Benin announced on Wednesday, May 15th, that it allow exports of Nigerian oil through its port of Sim, in a bid to resolve the tense standoff between both countries. According to the mines minister of Benin, Benin has provisionally reversed its decision to block exports of crude oil from Niger via its port and agreed to hold a meeting between the two countries. So, why did Benin reverse its decision? Well, the mines minister revealed that the authorities in Benin decided to reverse the ban on Niger's oil exports after a meeting with Chinese partners. We have decided to authorize the loading of the first vessel in our waters. However, it is important to note that this authorization is provisional, he said. The mines minister further added that Benin intends to respect all the agreements within the pipeline project and that it plans to hold a meeting to examine urgent matters relating to the proper conduct of the pipeline's export operations. So, for now, it appears that the border dispute between Niger and Benin has ended. Hopefully, both countries will be able to come to a suitable agreement that will benefit both of them. But the question is, was Niger right in closing its border with Benin? What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.